All right, I'm back. I had to take a quick pause for station identification, 2 and 2. Remember that shit? Chuck Woolery? Love Connection? Whatever. Anyway, so the quote was, some of us dance in the rain, or some people feel the rain, others just get wet. That's the one I was looking for. And it wasn't Einstein, it wasn't Nietzsche, it was Bob Marley. Makes sense, right? So anyway, when it rains, it pours. Well, you can take shelter from the storm, or you can go dance in it and know that, have faith that when the rain stops, the crops that you'll be able to field are going to be worth the discomfort of being wet. But if you can learn to enjoy the process somehow, and usually that's through faith, that no matter what, engaging in life, in life's terms, like, that doesn't mean accepting negative things at face value. It just means, well, they happened. So don't judge the things that happen as if they shouldn't have happened because of some indoctrinated idea that you have about how it should have been. No, how it should have been is how it is. So now you have to do, if you can process that, then you can deal with things as they are. And that's what I did, and even though everybody else was telling me that's not the way to handle it, because this system that we're indoctrinated in means, no, just go get another job and make more money and you'll be okay. Well, no, I won't be okay. I will, comfort-wise, and that would have been an easy path, but I'm succumbing to this system that I know spells hell for our kids. So is that being a dad? Is that being a good person? In my opinion, no. Also, and I'll never forget this, there's people that are begging. They don't have the strength to go within. So what people will do is they'll project the worst part of themselves onto somebody else, me and my company, and they will attack it or attempt to. And if that person is strong enough to stand in their truth, it's going to go back to them, and they're going to be forced to deal with the consequences of their actions. And I saw that. I was in that space where literally I was sitting in the car with Kurt before any of the accusations had even happened. And I remember him. He was always doing these thought experiments with me, and it was funny. He would always. This one I think was a lottery ticket fell on the floor, which was weird because I had I think 3 dreams at that time of I found scratching a scratch off and a specific number, $2 million. I don't know what it means, but he this is the last thought experiment he did with me. He's like, well, okay, so say you're at a gas station. He talks like that. Say you're at a gas station, right? And somebody in front of you drops a lottery ticket, and it's a winner. They don't know they dropped it. They don't know they won. What do you do? I said, well, I give it to them. No, they're gone. They're gone. It's just sitting there. Okay, well, I'll give it to the clerk. The clerk's just going to spend it anyway, and it's not my business. And he keeps going, right? And he would do this, and I was always giving him the answer. He wanted me to show that I was him. Misery loves company. He wanted me to say the foul shit, and I said I'd give it to the clerk. I said, Kurt, stop. I said I would give it to him. And he said, thinks only 2% of the people in the world would do that. I said, well, maybe I'm 2% then. I said, but I can't fucking sleep at night doing something. It's not mine. I said, now I can take $100 and turn it into $1 million. I said, I don't need to take somebody else's, so they probably need it more than I do. I said, so I would give it to them. So stop asking me dumb shit. He would always do that. And this was the only time he stopped asking me dumb shit. And I remember this last thing. He looks at me and he goes, Vince, I've done some bad things, and I need to be held accountable. He was a God-fearing guy. He didn't fear God enough, because dumbass. But I remember him saying, he's like, you're the kind of person that would die alone on a hill for what you believe in, right? I said, yeah, I guess. I mean, it's not my intent, but yeah. I mean, if this whole company was built on what I call principle over profit. Principle first, people first, always. If you do that with integrity, it will pay dividends in ways you can't, not the superficial way, but to your spirit. And with the bond I have with my kids now, you can't buy that shit. The wealthiest people are some of the most miserable people I've ever met in my life. And but I remember him saying that to me. And whenever I wanted to go dark, because I've always had the ability to shut this down and go back to comfort easily. Would have took a little bit of darkness, and really just me turning my head in the other direction while the powers that be in my world took hold. And I wouldn't. I said, no, I want to do this. Martin Luther King, darkness begets darkness. You can't throw shit on top of shit and expect it to not be shitty. Reality is going to get shittier when you compound shit. So I knew that what I couldn't do is act in the way that I don't want the world to be for my kids. So, but I remember that conversation with Kurt. So every time I'd want to, oh, fuck this shit, I'm gonna, you know what I mean? I would revert back to that, and I don't know if anybody's ever read the book Radical Forgiveness. There's these soul contracts that we have. So what you learn in life is that nothing really happens to us, it happens for us, right? And even the worst relationships, quote unquote worst, that we have in our lives are they're contracts. They're what people do is subconsciously and unconsciously they'll bring the worst parts out of us so that we can deal with it, because we don't have the ability to go inside. And people don't just wake up one day and say, I really want to change and be a better person, when they haven't experienced some kind of trauma, suffering, to bring the worst parts of them out so they know that they exist. Because otherwise you're just living in accordance with what you know the truth to be, and that a lot of that's toxic. So I knew that there were people at that company that there's a good person in Patrick. I call him a scumbag and, a pussy and, all this. And it's all true on a superficial platform. But at the end of the day, if he can rise to the occasion once he's held accountable, there might be a good person inside him that's begging to get out, right? And he could be a better father that way. Same with Kurt. Scott, motherfucker, I'm coming after you. So Scott is the investor that hides behind his money and has other people do his bidding and then tries to play silent. That's the motherfucker right there. That's that 1%. I'm not saying he's in the 1%. I'm not saying he's that wealthy, but he's the example, right? He came in, took the majority of the company, wants to stand back there, play silent, considers himself a takeover artist that comes in and takes over distressed companies for pennies on the dollar. Not a good person. Not a good person. But maybe there's a good person in him. I don't know. But what I do know is it's going to probably seem unfair to him that I'm going to come after him with the kind of force that I'm coming after him. I'm coming after everything, unless he can step into integrity. He has the same opportunity everybody else does, but those are the people that typically hide the most. And that's the people who are behind this system, where they're the biggest cowards on the face of the planet. Everything they do is out of fear. The fear of losing their wealth, their power. And the truth is, we have the power. We have the power. All of these systems have been promulgated by them to prevent them losing what they feel is their birthright, their power, their... And it's crazy, because when you act in accordance with your fears, you'll manifest the worst of them eventually. And this may be that time. This may be the time where we're given that 400 years peace, prosperity, and abundance that we're promised. Or this could be, maybe we've been here before in humanity and we annihilate ourselves again. I don't know. But I know when I got that email today, in a whole different tune, same agency, not much has changed in the case except the citation of the laws, which really didn't apply much to the DOJ. It was more for the FBI. And instead of that blanket denial, and again, this is a case that it's not politically polarizing. The only people that ever talk shit about it are affiliated with the people that stole, right? The attorneys, the people that have something to hide. That's the only people who talk shit. Nobody else talks shit. Maybe some people in my family life, but there's a personal vendetta. You know what I mean? What I'm doing and what can be accomplished here is something that all people can rejoice in. And that's typically not the kind of case that our higher ups in politics, and which the DOJ is politically affiliated always, not supposed to be, but it's typically not the kind of case they're going to get involved with. They want their polarizing, politically left-right propaganda cases. That's what they want. And to get that today was was pretty inspiring, considering everything else that's going on and the movement into the Supreme Court and all that good stuff. So yeah, today I got to finish this article. And I want to give props to Madden Hauser too. I know that sounds fucking weird, but look, I had an article come to mind last night, and I dropped it. It was through a comment that I saw on their page on LinkedIn, and so I started writing this article in sections. And I was sure that by the time I came back to finish the article, it was going to be down on the Madden Hauser site on LinkedIn. And I was gonna repost it anyway because I'm a dick. Not dick, but I was really talking to young attorneys about how we change the system, and I don't have to do any of that. I'm at a point now where the win is imminent, right? Superficially, spiritually, like I've done the right things. I could just bask in that and move comfortably into whatever's next. But instead, I'm 2 days now in this article, and I feel that even if there's one attorney at that firm who looks at it and says, oh, I understand what he's saying about this system, I can do something different. Well, I'm doing what I teach my kids. Illuminate the space you occupy while you have the miracle of life to occupy it. I know when the darkness comes for these guys, it's gonna be tough. You know what I mean? And some of them won't be able to handle it. People like Creel, who put their entire life, he's just a puppet for this system, right? And I'm not happy that any of them are going to suffer within the same confines of this system. Doesn't make me happy. I'm not rejoicing in that. But what I do know is if they can step up and take the lesson rather than feeling like they've been victimized for shit, which is fucking ironic, right? It's gaslighting at its finest, but it'll probably happen because people just can't go inside. But that's where happiness is an inside job. Peace is an inside job. You can't change the world around you, but if you can work on your inner peace, look, illuminate the space you occupy while you have the miracle of life to occupy it. You can light your candle, right? And you can light it as bright as you want. And there are going to be people that see it. There's going to be people that want to be illuminated too, so they'll take a spark off of yours. Next thing you know, darkness can't enter your circumference. And in your little corner of the universe, you've illuminated. If we all do that, then, but the thing is, the trick to this indoctrinated human experience that we have, it's dark. We're born straight into a field of trauma. And the entire function is to transcend this human experience. And that takes consequences, that takes suffering, takes pain. But pain is necessary, suffering is optional, right? And we're not going to get into that right now. But once you realize that if you take the lesson and you have the faith to know that the right thing will happen as a result of that lesson, not what your ego wants, but what is spiritually sound and good for the universe, then you don't have to suffer anymore. This has been hard for me, but I'm not suffering. When I was having those PTSD benders, I was suffering, and I didn't know how to get out of it. But through those, I learned how to get out of it permanently, because if anything, all this should have put me back into that space. I mean, they were banking on me being dead, you know what I mean, or institutionalized or something, and none of that happened. Instead, I held out for the right thing, and when it rains, it pours. Only I'm standing outside dancing in the rain, and I'm going to wait for the crops to come, and I'm going to watch it happen. I'm not going to cower from anything, and that's what I've done. And the bond with my kids is stronger than, it's the bond that everybody prays for. There's no relationship problems. They might have some, you know what I mean? Kids are going to have whatever, but there's, what I know is there. In the moment where they decided that they were going to back me in this fight, when I asked them, I said, look, we're going to lose the house. If I step into this, I have to give my full-time effort to beating this, and I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know what that means exactly. And a 13 and 15-year-old and the age of information, knowing they were going to lose their phones and all their traveling, all the things that I gave them that was special to me that I didn't have when I was a kid, was going to be gone, and our time together, which, as it turns out, that was the most important thing. Which it hits me hard because it was, but it just made it stronger. You know what I mean? The drive to get back to them and just have days with them is massive, and those are things we forget without some form of pain, right? Like if I didn't have this, I wouldn't have known that. I'm not giving them, in my drive to be superhero dad, I'm not giving them opportunities to grow because I'm not giving them chores, or I'm not including them in whatever pain I might be going through. I haven't included them, so they can't even come over and try to prop dad up. We forget that as fathers, a lot of us. And especially when we're from we have a bad upbringing. Most of us have not been, we're just not perfect. We're flawed humans, and that's okay. Embrace your fallibility, because it's that fallibility which, if you embrace it and you don't judge yourself, you got to give yourself compassion too, for doing the things that you didn't know you were doing before you did them. You know what I mean? We're conditioned at a very young age to a flawed truth, and then we live that out until we know better. So I hope the best for him. I really do. And I have to, there's, like today when I saw that, I'm like, well, maybe I don't want to. No, there's a calling here, and when I sat in that car with Kurt, he was begging to be held accountable. Not him, but his soul. So if you read Radical Forgiveness, read Jill's story, the first 30 pages, I promise you it's life-changing. If those first 30 pages resonate, then you're going to want to read the rest. If they don't resonate, you're not ready for it, set it down. But what that was a soul contract. And what I remembered in that moment was that this guy really wants to be a better person. I can see it clearly now, his face, just all of it out of nowhere. I really need to be held accountable. And I pushed it off. I pacified it. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, okay, well, you're good, Kurt. You haven't done that bad. I didn't even know the shit was going on. I had no idea that what he was cooking up, the shit he was, I had no idea at that point. It was just typical me and Patrick fucking, public riffs had gotten out of control, which he was orchestrating, but I had no idea. And I remember that moment. And what I remember is just as a person that didn't have the strength to go within, but wanted more than his soul, wanted more than anything to be set free. Because we do live in our own little prisons, don't we? So, and Patrick, he's too oblivious to fucking want that. But there is a good person in him who wants to see his kids. The ones that, there's. I didn't partner up with him because he was a piece of shit, right? So I saw good in him first, and then I also saw the flaws. So, but Scott, I'm coming for you, motherfucker. I told you were going to be the one that I come after the hardest, because it's people like you that make this. You use people. You play on their dreams and their hopes, or their dysfunctions, and you have them out there to do your bidding with your money, while you stave off consequences. So it's people like you who are the worst for this society. So I'm coming for you. You're not getting out of this. You can step forward into integrity like everybody else. You're going to pay for what you stole, or you're going to pay for what you stole. It would be in your best interest to do it at your own volition. You won't, more than likely, but it doesn't matter. You're a dual citizen. So I don't think you know this yet, but I'm suing you in Canada too. And Canadian courts function a little bit better than American courts, in that behavior is still a big part of what predicts the outcome, right? And I got behavior like a motherfucker. So the first law firm I went to in Canada, they took it right away. Boom. They're not afraid of it. It's a different system over there, more parliamentary. Not saying that's better or worse, whatever, but I mean, over here we want to look at the technical aspects, which is bullshit for you young attorneys. Complete horseshit. This is a system devised for liars by liars. There was a large group, small group of bureaucrats and monarchs and And they've always wanted global control, and they knew they would have to commit crimes against humanity to get to this place, especially in this new world where we were supposed to be the end of tyranny and oppression. They knew that to get to where they wanted to be, they would have to commit certain crimes against humanity. And obviously they don't want to be held accountable. We saw what happened to the Hitler regime. So they don't want that. And what do? They make corporations people, and then they hide behind corporate bylaw, protocol. Legalese is as old as the Greeks, right? And meant to confuse the working person, to keep them out of that courtroom, even though they profess or purport that the court is for the people. This has been going on. This is age-old shit. Same ruling class. It's grown a little bit bigger, but I mean, it's the same shit. Read Machiavelli. Read Mein Kampf. Same shit. Nothing different, other than the ability for the masses to connect at light speed and not be disconnected. So I thought Elon was going to be something special. Right now, fuck Elon. Me and him got a little thing going, but maybe not fuck Elon. Maybe I don't know what's really going on there, but for anybody who's seen it, there's been a little bit of a spat over not so much intellectual property, but how his platform acts, and it might be AI, and it might be something he needs to correct, but it could be him. I don't know. Regardless, we have the ability to connect at light speed, and never before in human history, at least our written human history, have we had that ability. So if we can turn our guilt, our disdain for ourselves and each other into constructive redirection of this ruling class, which we have the power to do, then we can change things. And but first we have to dismantle this language that puts corporate protocol, corporate bylaw, legalese into the system as law when it's not law. It's disguised as law. That's not law. There should never be, in this republic, per our founding documents, there should never be a technicality that overrides human interest. Never, 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 never. There's never anything where, oh yeah, well, we didn't get that document in on time, so that person who murdered 3 people gets to walk free. Never in the fucking history of ever should that be considered law. It's so fucking delusional that civil war, what the fuck is that oxymoron? There ain't nothing civil about war, but war makes them money, so let's call it civil. Civil crime. That's what they wanted to do with me. Civil crime. What the fuck is a civil crime? It's crime. Bank fraud. Identity theft. Extortion. Maybe extortion. Coercion, definitely. But there's a series of crimes that I have irrefutable proof for, and you want to call them civil? Go fuck yourself. Right? Like, a crime is a crime no matter who commits it. Doesn't matter. But we see it, right? Like, you want to go into this court system and that we pay for. We pay for it. Everything. Everything is paid for by the people for the people. We pay for all that shit. So somebody steals from Walmart, multi-billion-dollar national corporation. They're on that motherfucker who stole a loaf of bread, or whatever. I mean, 400, whatever it is. And that person's stealing because they're poor. We pay for it. We pay to cover their interests. But you get somebody from big insurance who they don't want to cover the heart procedure with your father, and your dad dies. But we know he's covered because we read that. But then they go into all this legalese and this fucking nonsense. Well, if you want to deal with that, you're going to have to sue. Because the cops are calling it civil. But they just lied to us. They said that's what we understood, and they're saying because of this, and I know that's not true. So that's a crime. They just killed our dad. No, that's civil. You're gonna have to sue them. Okay, well, how do I do that? Well, you're gonna have to pay for an attorney. Yeah, you got to pay for an attorney. Then that attorney is gonna take you through this. It's gonna be about 2 years of fighting, and maybe you'll get the result you want. But that attorney is paid or indoctrinated to bow to the system, not to you. Even though they present themselves as representing you, they're beacons of the system. It's foul, right? So part of the reason I said the props to Madden Hauser, because this could be another technique. They might have this procedure. There's no winning for them. It's etched in the stars that this has to happen the way it's happening. So there is no winning as far as they see winning. And maybe they left the article. It's not finished yet. I have to drop it tonight. But everything that I said, they left up. I don't know what that means. And I wasn't being a dick, but I was being very honest. And you know, who I'm taking down through the Supreme Court case is one of their own, two maybe. And them, they're the namesake. Same for Madden Hauser. Any entity, if you can accept the lesson and not play victim, well, there's light at the end of that tunnel, right? So, is that what's happening? I don't know. I don't know. So from where I stand, I'm not going to think foul about it. I was expecting it to be taken down. That's what I was expecting, and it wasn't. And I don't know what their intentions are, but what I believe and why I put this time in, because I don't have to. Like I said, I could just bask in this. Oh, it's about time. Fuck you. But I'm not vengeful. It's not. I don't even have it in my DNA anymore. It is fuck you, but it's not like, you know, like I don't want anybody to suffer unnecessarily is the thing. But sometimes you have to suffer necessarily, right? If it applies, then that's how we get to the other side. So maybe that's the other side for them. Maybe it's another slimeball attorney tactic where they think they can sue me for what it's not going to happen. This one is where it ends for you. And the slimeball attorneys of the world. And some of them don't know they're slimeballs. They're indoctrinated, and I don't judge them. But there's a new day upon us. There really is. At least on my watch. As far as I'm concerned, I've proven that I'll never let. It hurts too much for me to let things slide when I know that what becomes of that thing I let slide is my kid's future. Not on my watch. And I would rather die than allow something for comfort to slip through my hands that I think I might be able to do something about. And that's what this whole thing was about for me. It's like, look, I've given them the life that I could have only dreamt of. And when they agreed, they looked at me. I said, we're going to lose a house. We're going to, you know, I don't know how bad it gets. I said, so we can fold or we fight. What do we do? You know, and I told him, I said, my concern is not me. It's not, we can take this money. There was $1 million on the table at the time. We can do this and we can be comfortable. I said, but there's thousands upon thousands of people that get abused by this language every fucking day. I said, I think, I know I can win. I said, my biggest fear, if I have one, is that if they lose me, there might not be anybody that's so oddly equipped to carry this thing through to wherever it needs to go. I said, and that's what I'm afraid of. I said, we can be comfortable, probably more comfortable than ever. And I can buy the people out of the company that stole it. I don't feel good about that, but if that's what you think, I said, but on the other side, people suffer. I said, so do we fold or we fight? 15 seconds. These kids looked at me in the age of information. No, they didn't want to lose. Our house was beautiful. I loved it. 4 levels, had the studio in the basement, human condition I knew was going to... They looked at me in 15 seconds. They said, we fight. I said, pack it up, motherfuckers. That's how we talk. It's a loving motherfucker. I said, pack it up. I said, all I need is you're the only cheering section I need. I said, let's pack it up. We packed it up. And within a month, I was lucky, thanks to all the people that supported a roof over my head in hotels and different houses, giving me space so I didn't have to fight from the streets, because I would have. Thank you. And it's been a long road. It could be longer. Things could have went a lot worse. But there were some people who believed, and because of that belief, we're where we are right now. And I don't know what the outcome's going to be exactly, but it's not about the outcome. It's about the journey. And I can tell you, this feels better than it would have felt taking that money. I would have never felt right about that, ever. And I wouldn't have been doing my job to those guys either. I know that sounds weird, but they were begging for anybody everything's a cry for love in some form or fashion. And they know they're not living right. So they went to the person who had the strength at a soul level, radical forgiveness, and they attacked the worst parts of themselves. They projected it onto me, and then they attacked. And it was my job to hold them accountable within the confines of light, to not revert to darkness. Like Martin Luther King says, darkness begets darkness. You can't chase out darkness with more darkness. Only light can do that. Only love can do that. So I had to find a way, through as much as I wanted to smash their fucking heads in, you know what I mean? That old neighborhood shit. I had to find a way to find love in the scenario. And through, all this did was make me a better person. Even though some days I want to go kick the shit out of somebody. You know what I mean? But I know that's the wrong mechanism. And that's not the future I want my kids to live in. Illuminate the space you occupy while you have the miracle of life to occupy it. Eventually, light will find its way to you. Man Hauser. For whatever reason you kept it, maybe you can erase it. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is, but if there was some good intention, so the young attorneys could see that, and you guys will all see the article tonight at some point. If there's some well-meaning there, props. If there's not, well, it's going to be seen anyway, and it's going to do what it does, and you're going to feel bad about it. But yeah, if there was because I'm really speaking the truth, and I know most people aren't evil, most companies aren't evil, some are, but most aren't, and if they can be shown where their missteps are, they'll correct them. And suffering's not a bad thing if you take the lesson, because eventually it'll make you stronger. So I don't know what's going on there, but if the intent is pure, it really doesn't matter what the intent is of the firm. But what matters is the young attorneys who get to see it, and if there's even one that realizes he's right, like the system, that's what this system did, and I don't agree with what I see out here. And I look at my founding documents, and I just can't live with this. So I got to do something. If that does something to one, then it was well worth the 2 days it took to write, and all the experience leading up to it that prompted me to write it. And for whatever reason, for Madden Hauser to leave it up, I mean, I was blown away. And then I had to take a break from the article. I opened my emails, and Department of Justice sending me to the FBI Detroit field office. Illuminate the space you occupy. Like the miracle of life to occupy it. Look at that shadow back there. I'm a filmmaker, but I didn't plan any of this shit. This contrast, this juxtaposition while I'm talking about illuminating, and this, and all I got is a lamp on. You know, I'm sitting here at my keyboard typing away. Manifestation, motherfuckers. I love you guys. You can't write this. You can, but after the fact. Love you.